Welcome to That Guy's a Maniac, the podcast, episode 16. I am your host, Richie, and I am joined, as ever, with my beautiful assistant, Farley. Say hello, Farley.
Hello.
We are That Guy's a Maniac. We have been blogging for a ridiculous amount of time. You can find us on www.thatguys.co.uk. You can also find us on social media at That Guy's a Maniac. Farley, we are privileged to be sponsored today. Who are we sponsored by?
Indeed, we couldn't do this without the gracious endowments from our sponsors. And this week we are sponsored by Nuka-Cola for all your post-apocalyptic carbonated drink needs. Thank you, Nuka-Cola.
Okay. Okay. Well, today we are talking about non-violent games. So, I mean, what made us want to do this?
Well, this is, I think they're going to come out in a funny order, but we had the idea for this as a companion piece, the yin to the yang of Fight Week. And the reason why we're thinking about non-violent games, or wholesome games, as they are being called, is because there was a wholesome direct a number of weeks ago now. And so we thought it'd be fun to have a look at some games we like to play and would recommend that don't necessarily revolve around shooting things in the face as much as possible.
And therein lies the rub. I mean, it's really, really tough to actually define what a non-violent game is, and I spent a longer time probably looking for games that were non-violent, actually just trying to define what a non-violent game is. So, yeah, ooh.
Okay, but anyway.
All of the above, all of these let the cogs turn in your head words. So, the definition of, or at least my definition of a violent game is anything at all which has some kind of violence. And now, with video games, there's always going to be a level of comic book violence, purely because, like, if it gets too realistic, it's just basically violence porn. But with a lot of games, you do see a comic booky quality to how they just sort of approach violence. Like, even in the GTAs, there is still like a comic booky world with crazy physics and all this sort of stuff going on. But you know, you'll end up kicking a hooker or shooting someone in the face, and it just becomes rather blasé. But the flip side to that is, even Mario jumping on a Goomba is still technically violence, or indeed in some of the later 3D versions he punches stuff as well, never mind jumps on things. So there is a level of violence is just enacting violence. So if you try to find a game which doesn't include anything, even down to the level of a Mario game, it's actually quite tough. Especially like your Tom Clancy example was a very, very good sort of marker for that, because you can look through a Steam catalogue and you'll find, I'm actually just going to literally open mine, and you'll find out that, you know, you've got action slashers, or you've got action RPGs, or you've got Batman, or you've got a fuck ton of fighting games, or you're shooting zombies. You know, it's like everything is almost geared to some kind of violence upon something else, whether it's another human being, whether it's aliens, whether it's the undead, or whether it's, I don't know, personified anime girls as consoles or whatever. You know, there is always going to be some level of violence in there. So it was actually tough for me to sort of find games that actually fit into those different genres, and I ended up sort of almost writing a list of what are the most typical non-violent games. Where do they kind of fit in? So
right, because there are because I can we'll kind of go into your list, because I can think of a couple of big categories which includes tens or hundreds of games.
Yeah.
But they tend to be their own thing. So yeah, go with them. Some of the stuff you put down.
So basically, the first one and the easiest one, but it is not all inclusive, is the story-driven ones. So you can probably find a plethora of visual novels which don't actually feature violence, or don't actually have you controlling a character which does violence in some sort of fashion. Now, visual novels tend to, they tend to sort of go along the lines of romance, or they go down sort of talking about a popular story. Very, very good sort of example of that could actually be the Telltale games. Now, they do actually have... Now, there's
I was going to say...
Yeah, they do actually have violence in them, but things like the Back to the Futures that they did, they were actually quite tame. There wasn't really that much... there was no shooting somebody in the face or anything like that. There was a level of menace, but it wasn't necessarily, actually controlling your character to make them do something. And yeah, there is also the very, very good example of the Batman game where you actually see the turning of the Joker into the Joker, and it is so fucking violent. So I do understand where I'm coming from, but visual novels do lend themselves very easily to tell a story, but only tell a story. And of course, we could go back to our previous podcast, and I could actually argue with myself as to whether or not a visual novel is actually even a fucking game. But going off that, between visual novels and sort of Telltale games, there's also the point and clicks, of old. So things like Monkey Island and Day of the Tentacle, that sort of stuff. Again, they allow you to sort of tell a story without a violent undertone or overtones even, and it just allows you to sort of do point, click, puzzle, that sort of thing.
And I'd say that includes your Mists and Rivens, Siberia, etc. All of those, also kind of hidden object games as well, which is there's gazillions of.
And I mean, I'm going to try and stay on the more popular titles as well when I talk about this, because I mean, you could say like what you just sort of said, hidden object games. I mean, you could go on the Google Play Store and you could find hundreds of them just by typing in the words hidden object, but I want to try and keep to the more popular side of things, because I'm sure there are a fuck ton of non-violent games, but I want to try and keep with ones that are more in the public knowledge as well, just for my own personal nonsense. But your own internal irrational rules of this discussion. Exactly. I vocalized most of them, but I think it makes sense. But yeah, story-driven games, and I suppose there's a very big genre, which is a very all-encompassing nonsense word, but I think you know what I'm getting at when I say it, and that is puzzle games.
Yeah, I had puzzle games on my list.
Because puzzle games can go from absolutely anything and can apply to many, many genres. You could even argue that Minecraft is a puzzle game. So it's not worth going down that sort of level of defining what puzzle is. But when I say puzzle, I mean things like your Tetrises or your Picross, things that are actually logical puzzle games, almost like doable and in like a crossword style or something like that. Those sort of lend themselves to not be towards fighting games. Now, of course, there is a million different puzzle games out there, and in fact, Tetris, you could argue, is actually quite a violent game. Especially when you play the online competitive version. I've certainly punched walls and things like that when playing that. But no, like there is actually games from that genre, such as Puzzle Fighter, which is actually depicting where it is just gems falling down from the sky. It is depicting Morrigan fighting Chun-Li or whoever, So I mean, I think it's a trap category, and there's probably about a million things that fall into it, and a million counter arguments as to why puzzle games shouldn't necessarily be in non-violent games. But you know where I'm coming from there.
Yeah. And when I was thinking about games to talk about, one of my lists is definitely a kind of a puzzle game, and it's your Puyos, your Buster Moves, what's the Sega, Mean Bean Machine, all columns, all of those, yeah. Through to Candy Crush and games like that. Yeah. I mean, they all are like match 3 games. Again, you still have like, what was that really popular one, Puzzle Quest as well, literally puzzle in the name, where you actually have to collect 3 together. You level up RPG like heroes, your paladins or your rogues or whatever, and they attack a boss, but somehow that's connected to how many red bricks you got in a row to increase HP or whatever. I mean, that's the thing. My other genre is sports. Now, sports is an easy one, because there's very clearly defined sports games which are not necessarily violent to each other. Driving games are competitive. However, things like Burnout, Mario Kart, Crazy Taxi are probably not in the level of driving games that are non-violent. I mean, Mario Kart is chucking stuff at each other, and I guess when you're talking like an F1 game or a Gran Turismo, the whole goal is not to crash, whereas with other games, like literally have crash in the title, or burnout, or whatever. I mean, the central mechanic of Flat Out, for example, particularly the mini games, which are excellent, is how far can I launch my guy through a windscreen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I mean that is the actual premise of driving. I think is fine, but when it becomes like Mario Kart or like the Flatouts, I think that's where it doesn't fit into non-violent. Manager games.
I didn't think.
I don't know if you really care for them, but like, you've got Football Manager, you've got East Side Hockey Manager, and fair enough, there is like, especially with hockey, I'm sure there is violence in there, but you're ultimately playing a manager, you're benching people. Yes, they get injuries, but it's not necessarily injuries from gunshot wounds or an incident involving zombies. So it's kind of different, and but yeah, manager games, there's a whole stack of them out there, and additionally, sort of a mixture between the two is the hardcore Sims as well. Like I think, very, very easy ones of the truck driving sims, where people. I still
Oh my God,
don't get my
yeah,
head
just-
around these. You know.
So I don't know. I can kind of see the appeal. So what was I looking at? It's one of the many train simulators.
Yep.
And it was I can't remember where it was. Some European. I watched a whole video about some European tram line, and I can kind of see. I mean, I don't get it myself. But I can kind of see, because it's just super photorealistic. Really simple controls, and you're just kind of going around. And there's a whole raft of those now, and they do quite well. Farming Simulator.
Yeah. Farming Simulator is just like I don't understand why that is such a massive.
And all these different lorry driving, long haul lorry driving ones and train driving ones. But then I do know a couple of people who wouldn't necessarily call themselves gamers, because they just exclusively play Sims. So not the Sims simulators. Sorry. So they'll play like real-time long-haul flight simulators and invest more money than I think either of us have invested in
peripherals,
monitors,
and,
PCs,
nuts,
a chair, the right kind of joystick. And those obviously normally fall outside of those categories. But of course, every time I've ever touched the simulator, it is often quick race to how can I destabilize this thing.
Exactly. Like you playing Skyrim. As soon as you get to that first village, shoot the chicken, everybody attacks you.
I mean, even in GTA, which has the trains, it will be okay. Hop in the train and then just keep upping the speed until the whole thing derails. I actually stumbled across that whole genre by just scrolling down in Steam, and there was like a live broadcast of somebody doing a European long haul across Germany, and I was just like, fucking hell. I mean, how into it must you be to just watch it? Never mind. I bet there were more watchers of that than a lot of other things. I bet they're really popular.
Yeah. Along with that, I've got a very, very vague genre, and it's not really a genre, but I feel like you've already kind of touched on it, but the genre is Nintendo games. Because things like Animal Crossing and Tomodachi Life, which are completely like your wholesome games that you'd mentioned before, I think the Nintendo have a very steady leaning towards the wholesome games, and I think that as a genre, it's almost worthwhile to sort of saying that. Or do you agree, disagree?
I was thinking about Animal Crossing actually. I don't know. It depends how hardline you want to be. So there are some quite violent bits in Animal Crossing. So for example, when the fishing tournament is on, and you basically give these fish to Chip, who then eats them in front of you in 5 bites to then judge their size. So if you're kind of more down the kind of Peter RSPCA end, fishing and hunting and trading in bugs and fish.
And of course, Mr. Rossetti, he's pretty, he's verbally abusive to you.
Yeah, he's very aggy. So minor things like that aside, but I guess you can, those kind of, I don't know, how would you describe the Animal Crossing Harvest Moon is of this world? Doesn't really have a...
I mean, if we were being British, we would call them farm-em-ups.
Oh God, how awful is that? Farmer mops,
Yeah.
mortgage and mops.
Yeah, I mean, like the mortgage thing is not even an event. Like everybody bangs on about that, but like ultimately, you can not pay it. You know,
Yeah, but then
nothing
that
happens.
means you can't have your separate bathroom, your basement.
Yeah. No, I mean that's fine. I can come to terms with that.
If you wanted to, you could do a poverty run
Yeah.
on Animal Crossing. I don't know why you would.
I mean, it's a very capitalist game. It wants you to buy things and get things.
So if you wanted to subvert that and just refuse to give anyone any money and just work on a barter economy for things that you find around, dig up, get given, or catch. I mean, maybe there are people out there who are playing it. Another category I had on my list, I mean, you got all the other ones, was rhythm and music games.
I'm not even done with my list. I've got quite a few. But rhythm is actually next. Yeah, like you've got the whole Guitar Hero Rock Band genre. You have that Taiko one on the Switch. Parappa the Rapper to go old school. Space Channel 1 and even there's a Senran Kagura one, which is about cooking, where they fight each other and you just have to do like random button presses. It's mental. But yeah, anything else that you had on your list?
No.
Right, I have another one, which is, or another two actually, 3. Fucking hell, Richie, read your own fucking list. So, one I've just termed dopamine hits. So this is something that you would find on your phones, but it's like pre-smartphone flash games. You know, things like Peggle. You know, Peggle isn't a puzzle game. Peggle is a pachinko. It is like fire a ball, let it hit all the things. There's no puzzle element there. It's almost like bust a move in reverse. And that it just is sort of like it adheres to sort of the inner casino, you know, sort of that feeling of like, right, I gotta get this thing, oh then this thing has hit this thing, now that other thing's hit, and Peggle caters to that by, you know, making the screen flash or play Ode to Joy at you and shit like that. But you get other things that sort of fall into similar categories, like, you remember the old one of like toss the penguin, so you would like chuck something and then it would bounce and you want to try and see how far it would bounce based on sort of random effects and stuff like that.
You toss the penguin?
Yeah, you not remember this? It was like Yeti Sports or something like that.
No.
And you still get this sort of stuff like in browsers. It's just, but basically you sort of create a trajectory and then you see how much power it gets and then it fires off and then random things will happen which you have no control of, but you watch it go further and further and further and further, and then you know you'll manage to pick up a rocket pack which will make you go even further, and it's pure dopamine. You've done nothing but set the trajectory and fire it off, and yet you remain transfixed watching the colours play back at you. You know, human beings are idiots. You know, it's like, oh, look at the flashy lights. But those kind of games, and arguably even Tetris is one of those ones as well, because if you finally get that fucking, 4 in a row, it is just boom, dopamine hit, and that's what it is. But there is no, again, none of these necessarily have violence. I suppose tossing a penguin is fucking violent. Never thought about it that way. But do you know where I'm coming from with Peggle? And I know that every game is a dopamine hit in some sort of fashion, but it's like you literally just let go of a thing. You've done one thing, set a trajectory, and then you sit and watch it do something and hope for big casino points. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they aren't violent, but they're definitely a thing in games. Collectible card games is the other one I had.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
some of them are tough as well because, like, they are about violence. So things like Hearthstone, you know, you're literally trying to whittle down the HP of your opponent, and and technically, based on my rules, any RPG where you're whittling down your opponent's HP is still violence. Yeah, fair enough. You know, like Cloud will run up to you with a blooming 7-foot long sword, and it only takes off 20 HP. It doesn't necessarily slice you in half. It's still violence, you know.
Yeah. And then there are RPGs where your card deck is your moveset, so things like Bat and Katos. So what you're seeing is just like an RPG, it's just that your input is a deck of cards rather than menu options.
But there are plenty of CCGs out there that don't necessarily have violence connected to them. But again, this leads me to my very, very last one, and that is board game emulators.
Yes, I had, which is sort of the same, pinball games.
Oh yeah, kind of the same.
Which is it's crazy they persist. I really don't. I could understand when we were younger, because you could actually, pinball machines were more of a thing. We have to stop saying more of a thing. We say it all the time. Yeah,
more of a thing is more of a thing nowadays.
It's more of a thing, and that's the thing. It's more of a thing. It's kind of more of a thing. There was a higher chance, again, particularly in this weird fucking shitty little island we live on, of encountering a pinball machine in the wild. But often with every single new console release, there's always a really early on a pinball machine game, and often they get good reviews. So they're still with us, and I just love to talk to some younger people. I just love to ask them, do you play pinball games? Have you heard of pinball? Do you know what you're doing? Or are there people out there who are a big fan of pinball games but have never played a pinball machine? Weird that persists. And then there's a whole, that falls into, similar to what you're saying with board games, there's also bar games, bowling, skittles.
Yeah. Not
really like sport, but a game based on a real game.
Yeah, and that brings me on to the last thing that I was going to mention is like it's weird. Always on Nintendo for some reason, or at least I only ever see them on Nintendo. You don't see them on like 360 or Xbox or PlayStation. Is you get these like 50-in-1 game packs, which include like Sudokus and chess and solitaire,
and Mahjong and Go and backgammon,
and again board game emulator really, it's again non-violent. But I think that's us covered most of the genres that I find lend themselves best.
So I've got one last provocation before we jump into some of our favourites.
Okay.
How do you sit with games that excuse their violence? So, for example, in Pokemon games, right, everyone is KO'd. There's no, deaths or injury. Or with games, and there's quite a few now that play on the trope of, you're a clone, so when you die, you wake up again. Your consciousness is preserved, and there are whole games based around
Borderlands
dying.
is a very, very good.
Yeah. Are we including those or not?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Because you're still enacting violence. It's exactly what I was saying, like with the idea of Cloud. Yeah, in all actuality, in Final Fantasy VII, Cloud could run up to you and hit you with a 7-foot sword, and technically you should die because you've just been sliced in half or across the torso with a great big sword. You don't. you lose a little bit of HP. It's still violence though. It's still enacting something. So unless your Pokemon know nothing but tail wag, I'm gonna say the Pokemon is still a violent game.
What about self-defense? So if you only ever used Wobbuffet?
So, was it counter and mirror move?
Yeah, mirror coat.
Mirror coat, yeah. I'm gonna say still violent.
Okay.
Because you can run away instead. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's very hard to find it. So I decided to take a hard line and sort of say that cartoon violence is still violence, regardless.
Okay.
You know. So that's why I want to try and limit our list of games to ones that just are not violent at all in any fashion.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, let's go on to our list. You go first.
Okay. So for this, so in doing this, because it's a huge topic, and we were looking for a way to cover it without just getting lost. We could have the discussion we just had and go on and on and on and on and on with different examples and counterpoints. So in order to focus it, our homework, if you like, was to pick 5 of your favourite, maybe not the top 5, maybe it's the first 5 you can think of, non-violent games to talk a little bit about and to recommend, I guess, if you're out there looking for some non-violent games. So my first one, probably one of my favourite ones on this list, is Endless Ocean, which was on Endless Ocean 2, which was on the Wii. So they are diving simulators. There's not been that many since. It had a predecessor series by the same company called Everblue on the PlayStation 2. I think that did get a European release, but I never got hold of it. So in Endless Ocean, you go to different regions and you dive, and all there is to do is to explore these underwater environments and encounter many different species of marine life, and that's it. Endless Ocean 2 builds on it a little bit, and there's kind of a lot more to do with the story and investing in things. But I prefer the simplicity of the first one. And they introduced a lot more mechanics, and they made it a bit gamey in the second one. And there would be kind of angry fish that would nudge you with their nose, and then if you kind of placated
violence.
Well, they wouldn't do any damage to you, and you placated them by kind of
going away,
firing like a weird rainbow beam at them until they were happy.
No way.
Yeah. But yeah, they wouldn't do any damage to each other. And the first one had much less going on, but it was kind of a little bit more pure for it. So it's very educational. The soundtrack's phenomenal. So Haley Westenra, who used to have quite a name as one of these very nice operatic voices. There was a couple of songs by her. So you're immersed in the ocean, just swimming around, discovering new species, adding them to your notebook. So if you encounter them 3 times, you have all the information about them. Taking photos of them was another part of it, and that's all there is to it. I absolutely love them. Like I said, I can't think of many other games like that. There was Africa for the PlayStation 3, but we never got released here, that I was quite keen on, which seemed to be the same idea. So Africa with a K rather than a C. It seemed to be the same idea, but based on safaris. So I think you can, because PlayStation 3 was Region 3, so I think you can import one of the versions which has English in it, but we never got a PAL release, I don't think. And then there's a very similar one to Endless Ocean coming out soon, based on, I can't remember which platform it is, but I saw it and I got excited because I thought it was Endless Ocean, but unfortunately it's a Western game, so it's a bit more mechanicsy, a bit more stuff and gubbins to do. Whereas I really just, and this is the whole point why I wanted to have this podcast, is arguably I enjoy some of these games more than I do some of the violent games we have. So yeah, Endless Ocean, and me and my wife played through both of those, hundreds of hours into each, just hoovering up all the different species and just soaking in the environment, really.
Cool. I suppose I'm actually going to go for one of my games now. It's a very, very obvious one we've already kind of talked about, and that would be, it's actually series, and that's Guitar Hero / Rock Band, the rhythm games. Cop outy? No. I mean, obviously I spent a long time on all of these ones. I think there's only like a smattering of the actual Guitar Hero games that I haven't played.
Because they really started salami slicing those, right?
They really did, yes.
More and more specific genres and updates and track things, yeah.
I mean, you have to remember, it started off with the original Guitar Hero on the PlayStation 2. None of the tracks were licensed. Very few people remember this, but they were like, you know, actual people just doing covers of them. So you had like Franz Ferdinand, Take Me Out, and what was it called? Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne, and he's like, this is like fake cover versions of it, and people were just playing along, you know. And it's that's where it all sort of kicked off. I think it was Guitar Hero 2 they started to get actual licensed ones or unique tracks and things like that, and they moved on from there. And then there was the split where some people from one of the company wanted to go and do something else, and other people wanted to do other things, so it split into Rock Band and Guitar Hero, which basically meant, because now there was a platform for licensing these, it just meant that some people got some artists and other people got other artists, which just meant that you could play both of them and they would play a little differently, ultimately the same, but the songs were just different on each one. And yeah, I mean, as it sort of went through the platform, you know, it expanded. Suddenly you didn't just have guitars, you had karaoke, you had the drum set, you had like you could play bass on it, but you could kind of already do that if you wanted to, and also the keyboard option as well, which literally was just playing keyboard. There was no plastic instrument there, it was a fucking keyboard add-on for the game. But yeah, like as a series, it then deviated into the Slice Salami versions that you're talking about. So you started getting Rock Band Beatles, or Guitar Hero Aerosmith, or Lego Rock Band.
I forgot about that.
It was one of the best versions. So instead of what's it called? Instead of like red lights or coloured lights coming towards you, it was Lego bricks, and the characters performing in the background, which if you're playing Guitar Hero, you're not watching what's going on in the background, you're watching intently for those notes flying down so you can hit them. But yeah, like they did have many different versions flying out there. And then it kind of died a death. I think it was sort of like beating a dead horse until Guitar Hero came out again on the Wii U, and I think some of the other platforms with a new plastic peripheral, which is another guitar, but it has 6 buttons and they are on top of each other, so they're like in a row of 2, so you actually have to move your hand up and down, and that was the whole concept. Look at us, look at this, it's different, it's the same but it's different. And ultimately, what that meant was you just had to relearn everything again, which I don't think many people were on for.
You just reminded me with the 2 rows of buttons. There was also a DS version, right, where you got like
the handheld thing. Yeah, I've got that one.
A little. Yeah. You got the little peripheral. Did it plug into the back, or did it?
I can't remember. I think there was a socket on the bottom or the top or something like that, and basically you plug it in and you hold it with one hand.
Yeah.
And you sort of tap it as it goes along. Yeah, I had the DS version as well.
Awesome.
Oh man. Oh god.
Yeah, it's really sad because, again, for our generation of gamers, that was a whole period. You know, if we're putting together the chronostratigraphy of gaming, the Guitar Hero and arguably the kind of Just Dance period, which we're still in, you know, Just Dance.
Yeah, SingStar as well. SingStar was a big thing, yeah.
And it was weird how for a while everyone was playing it, and then it just kind of petered out and completely vanished. But one of the things I liked, and one of the things we talked about a lot on this podcast, is, you know, people would come over, again, not necessarily people who'd played many games before or would consider themselves a gamer, and that would just be your evening. You know, you'd get a few beers in or whatever, and then you just sit there and take it in turns to kind of perform these songs. That was great.
Yeah,
had many a great weekends.
I had a few friends, and it was they weren't necessarily gamers, although arguably yes, but they we played through the Endless Set List together. So the Endless Set List was the big achievement in Rock Band 2, where you have to go through every song in order in the same difficulty, and that literally just meant that you were playing the game solidly for like 5 hours. You know, it's just like it was a slog. But it was good. I had great fun. It's such a good achievement to have. One of the best achievements I do have. Just to have actually gone through and done that. Yeah.
It was good exercise as well.
Yeah. I mean, they tried hard with the Wii U to sort of create a future-proof version of it, where they had this sort of channel that was just constantly playing them, and you could just jump in at any point and start playing, and it was supposed to cycle and change. But I think people are just done with it. They're not interested. It's not a thing. In-home plastic instrument karaoke just died. And that's a shame, because it's a weird set of skills that I still have. And in fact, just before COVID hit, I went to a Rock Band karaoke party, and it was like literally it was like people who could sign up on the day, and you could just choose a song and play. And it was weird, like the first time when I picked up the instrument, because it'd been like 3 or 4 years since I'd last done it, I couldn't quite remember, and I wasn't hitting the notes. I was like, this is annoying. But a few drinks in, and it was like riding a bike. I was back in playing playing along, and ended up winning that competition as well. Our band, of course it did.
Billy Big Boss.
actually did.
So add that trophy next to your Mario Kart All Format. What was the most ridiculous tournament you claimed to have won? Single player Streets of Rage next to your Streets of Rage trophy, and your Mortal Kombat trophy.
Yep.
Yeah, so that sounds cool. So that was like on a stage, like an actual
stage, and it was actually it was my girlfriend's work's night out, so I knew nobody. So I was just like, man, somebody do some singing. I want to play the guitar. There was just like a few people that were into it, so I ended up sort of like, I mean, ultimately I'd played in about, maybe a third of the bands that were on that night, so
Right.
there was a good chance I was going to win one of them. But yeah, it was
Yeah, it's a rock band / the band version of Guitar Hero. Still lives on as a hipster millennial thing to do.
yeah. Oh yeah, it does. I mean, it was in the middle of Hammersmith, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it'll be like VR, and it will come back.
Has
the second
VR
wave.
come back? Have you got a VR set?
No, but it came back and then it's gone away again. But we'll see it again.
Well, I mean, VR was like popular in the fucking 90s. Do you not remember Craig Charles hosted a show with VR in it?
Yeah, it keeps coming back.
I'll give you a tenner if you can tell me what the name of that show was. I cannot remember for the life of me. Fuck. I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
We gotta move on. God, I'm conscious that we've spoken loads about our first two games. The next one I'm going to choose, very much representing puzzle games, is a DSiWare game called Pico Pict. And now, if you remember when these came out in the late noughts, there's a whole series of games called Art Style.
Okay.
That came out for WiiWare and DSiWare, and so they were cheap games based around one kind of thing, and so there was the Base 10 was one, Light Tracks, Orbient. So I picked up Pico Pict because it got really good reviews at the time, and the way it works, it's kind of perfect for the DS. So blocks scroll down the screen much like Tetris. When they hit other blocks, they turn into solid blocks. And what you want to do is you're essentially turning those blocks into their component squares. So if you imagine, like, the long one in Tetris is 4 squares, and then you want to connect blocks so they form, I think it's lines of 3 or 4, and then they disappear as the shapes come down. But the gimmick behind it was that you're playing this game, and the different color blocks, there'd be 3 or 4 colors per level. The different kind of blocks which you're raising are going up to the top screen to make a little picture based on a NES game.
Okay.
So the first level is Mario Brothers, so the colors are kind of like Goomba brown, and then the Mario red and the Mario nose and the Mario hair, and so you keep the blocks off long enough, and you go with the picture. And the thing that, it's a great game as it is, but the thing that really made it phenomenal is as you built up that picture, more and more of the music started to come in. So when you first start playing, for example, the Mario themed level, initially all you'd get is like doot 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 doot, and then as you build the picture, it'll be like doot 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 doot, until you're almost near the end and the whole game is playing. Really, really good, and for a good period of time, that was my go-to. If you were on a plane, train, kind of long haul thing which you couldn't do anything, it would be I'll play a bit of Pico Pict, and then it would just get in your head, and that's all you'd be thinking about. Once you got all the way through to the end, and it was really tricky, and there were kind of phases where shapes would come down at different speeds, and different levels would have kind of different shaped blocks coming down, so you had to kind of use the tactics, and just a really nice mechanic. I think I've explained the kind of the block mechanic really poorly.
It's a very hard concept to try and explain to someone. All power to you.
They're smooth blocks, but when they hit the bottom, they turn into solid blocks. You can store up those solid blocks along the sidebar, or you can also move them around. Yeah, exactly. I know. Just fucking look up a video or download it. Is it even available anymore? Probably not. No.
Yeah, it's Nintendo. It's gone. It's practically book burning at this stage.
DSiWare, is that still available? Who knows? I've still got it on my 3DS. I moved it up. I don't know if you can get it again. Yeah, that was great. So great music, great concept, and one that really kind of hurt your brain, because you were looking at the shapes coming down and going, okay, how can I turn this into a 4, or how can I line up the blocks underneath it? So when the first one hits, this color disappears, then this color disappears, and this color disappears.
So that fits in pretty solidly with my sort of puzzle core that I sort of mentioned before. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Shall I move on to my next one?
Aye.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you might be able to argue this one, but I went for Catherine. Now I know that there's like remake of it, full body, but I thought Catherine was a really good one because that actually hits 2 levels. It is a visual novel story about guilt, and the other level is it's a puzzle of going up the stairs and avoiding things so you can get to leave your dream. There is an overarching what's the word, menace, and you are running about in boxer shorts, but I don't think it's
hang on. Within the canon, what happens if you don't get to the top of the pyramid?
You don't wake up. Okay, fair enough.
No, I'll allow it because most of the game is visual novel and then block scrambler.
Yeah, block scrambler is a block scrambler 'em up. We are in Britain. Yeah.
There we go. That's the official UK Games Institute designation for that genre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you played Full Body?
I haven't played Full Body at all. It's not on a platform I can get it on. It's really annoying because the announcement of Catherine Full Body was like literally like a week before they actually released Catherine on PC. So I thought,
wow.
they're just bringing out that version. And then I saw it and I read it like, wait a minute, this isn't the one with the extra character. What's going on here? So yeah, fuck it. They just brought out the old game at the same time, I guess. I mean, it's good because I guess it's preserving that thing as a thing.
Oh god.
As a thing. Things.
Thing is a thing. It's preserving that thing as a thing.
Yeah, preserving that thing is a thing. No, it's like, it is actually, you know, you are able to play the old version of it. It's not like they brought out the new version that disappears, but it still is pretty fucky not to just give me the new version as well. So, eventually, once it comes out in the PC, I mean, yeah. Catherine came out in what, 2008? It's now 2020.
Christ. Okay. So, sometime in the, if we last until the 2030s.
The 2030s when everybody has their own personal bubble.
Yeah, Catherine Full-Bodied will come out on PC.
Yeah. And yeah, like I just touched on it very briefly. The visual novel, if you haven't already, it really plays on guilt. You know, there's 2 different Catherines. There's Catherine, his fiance, and Catherine with a K, who's this very eager, thirsty version of Catherine. And they both are seeking his attention. And there's a heavy level of guilt. Did you sleep with this other Catherine? Did you not? And how you play out in that sort of level. It's quite interesting. Yeah, it stuck with me for a long time. Because I mean, I played it maybe 10 or so years ago, and it was it's just always one that stuck with me. And I'd love to play the new Catherine Full Body. Just not worth forking out for a PS4 for it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it adds another Catherine, right? Or,
Yeah.
another Catherine-based game. Kathy?
I think it's Kathy with a Q. Or Quathrin. I have no idea. I have no idea. I know that there is another Catherine in there.
Fair enough. Shall I go again?
Yeah, your go.
So this, as we've been talking, this list has changed at least 3 times. So as we're going through them, it's a very dynamic list. The next one is one of my, I think, absolute favourites, and it's Pokemon Channel. So although the Pokemon mainline games we've kind of ruled out, there are many spin-offs, and so it's either this or the Pokemon Typing Adventure, which is essentially Typing of the Dead, but on the 3DS with a wireless keyboard. But I think Pokemon Channel skips it. Came out on the GameCube, relatively hard to find over here. And in this game, you watch TV with Pikachu, and that is almost it. So there's a whole movie which they break up into, I think, 8 segments, and so you kind of unlock those different segments to then be able to watch this whole movie in a row. And if you do that, you unlocked Jirachi for the Game Boy Advance games, which is, I think, why I picked it up initially. But then there are lots of different channels, all based around different Pokemon. You unlock more channels based on the channels that you watch. There's a shopping channel, so you can order shit that turns up in your house. And then there are various locations that you and Pikachu can go to. There's a snow location, and you can talk to different Pokemon there and kind of find items, mostly money, which helps you buy stuff to furnish your apartment with. So it's all about interacting with this Pikachu. The marketing at the time kind of, I think made big claims about the artificial intelligence of this Pikachu, so that over time each person's Pikachu would be a different kind of character. It would have a favorite channel, so when I was trying to do this thing of watching all the film clips in a row, he'd be insistent on turning back to his favorite channel. I can't remember which one that was. There was and some of the channels were phenomenal. So there was a Mareep channel, which was just Mareep jumping over a fence. So, like the counting sheep.
Brilliant.
Just that.
Brilliant.
Endlessly. You could take screenshots and then kind of paint and colour over them, and then there was like a sort of like a art gallery program where Smeargle would then assess your painting every now and then. There was a Wobbuffet news channel, which is just Wobbuffet saying Wobbuffet over and over again, and sometimes it would jump to a report with a Meowth who was out in one of the areas and would kind of highlight things are there. So yeah, really fun. Also, so you could upgrade your TV, buy stuff. There's also like a trading holographic kind of card game thing, but you could also unlock the Pikachu Mini, and all of the Pikachu Mini games would rarely come up for sale. So this is kind of a double pick, if you like, because for my money, Snorlax Lunchtime on the Pokemon Mini is one of the greatest games of all time.
Why is that?
It's just fun. You play as a Snorlax, and you've got a plate in front of you, and somebody will put an apple down, and you press A to eat it, and you have to just do that as many times as possible. There's a time limit in which to do it, but occasionally somebody will put a Pichu on the plate instead of an apple, and you don't want to eat the Pichu.
Okay.
And so, yeah, me and a friend were competing for high scores on that for a long time. And as you know, it's one of those games you can get into a flow with.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is press A or don't press A. But you've got 2 seconds to make that decision every time. And sometimes you'll go into flow and be able to do it really quickly, and other times you'll kind of keep clocking up. So that's also tucked in, a non-violent game tucked in another non-violent game. Yeah, fun getting to watch, and I wish we had more of those, because this I keep saying kind of, and it's really annoying me. This fits in with
It's a kind of thing.
this kind of thing. Do you remember iPet
No.
for the PlayStation 3? I think
Oh, yeah.
you use the camera and you'd have a virtual. It's when there was a small trend in doing alternate reality. Alternate reality? Is that right? AR.
AR.
What does AR stand for?
Augmented reality.
Yeah, there we go. Alternate reality. Jesus. That's where you could. So yeah, on the original PlayStation 3, you could beam in an alternate dimension to that you'd only see to your TV. No, you'd have a pet, and then there was also something to do with the spellbook as well. So I really like the idea of those virtual pets, but they do a bit of learning, and it's all about interacting with those. Although it was obviously very kind of primitive, and sometimes Pikachu would act a bit psychotic in its demands. It was a fun kind of game, and I bought it to get legendary Pokemon, and actually really enjoyed getting kind of stuck into the game, and hung on afterwards to unlock like the Spanish version of the movie as well.
Mental.
Yeah. Pokemon channel.
Yeah. The next one is one that we may have talked about before on this show.
Is it Bruce Campbell's DLC in potential DLC in Mortal Kombat 11?
Oh, is Bruce Campbell potentially going to be in Mortal Kombat 11?
Is it something you got for free from the Epic Store?
Oh, for fuck's sake, no!
Is it both of those things?
No.
Bruce Campbell, non-violent Bruce Campbell DLC is now free on the Epic Store.
Take it by the peach. No, and no. It's basically another genre which I never really mentioned or never talked about, but it's one that we both like. It is quiz games, so Jackbox.
Oh yeah.
But there's been plenty of other quiz games throughout the years that we've enjoyed. The ever popular, amazing Why Is It Never Come Back 100 to 1.
The best. If you were one of the people who played that,
you're a good
you're
person.
Lucky. Yeah, you're a good person. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah. And I don't understand why it's not still a thing. I guarantee during COVID times, how great would it be just to be able to have teams, play quizzes against each other. You know, it doesn't matter if it's some stupid buzz presenter or whatever. You know,
because they had celebrity hosts, right?
Yeah.
Who would come on? So if you don't know, the game show 100 to 1, I think it started off as an American thing. Anyway, for a while it was free to everybody who had an Xbox 360, and it ran for. I remember it being, in my mind, it's a very short period of time, and the whole idea behind that game isn't necessarily, it's just like a general knowledge game. Isn't necessarily, do you know the answer to whatever question? It's how well you do compared to the other 100 people playing. And so when it was on the 360, you were playing against another 100 people live. So it just really felt like you're in an
American style game show.
Yeah, an American style game show, playing live with other people, and then over a couple of weekends they had different celebrity hosts.
And you had actual prizes as well.
Yeah.
Citron gave away a car on it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand why that is not still a thing, or indeed why it died away. But again, I remember that at the same time as doing the endless set list in Rock Band. So obviously, I'm just out of touch,
Yeah, but and again, it's one of those gaming experiences that has just gone now. You can't recreate it. There's no offline way. It doesn't exist as a
No.
product you can buy. There isn't an offline version, and I think an offline version would have been as good anyway, because then the computer's faffing up a statistic about how many people do and don't know the answer to this question.
But also Jackbox was the other thing that I wanted to mention. It's like, I'm not going to go into great detail. You can go back and listen to whatever episode it was I talked about. That's something I should have had to hand, isn't it? Go back and listen, blah blah blah. But yeah, Jackbox, they have lots of different quizzes. They have general knowledge. They have that murder mystery one. They have quickfire edition. They have lots of different fun cooperative games that aren't about shooting each other. I suppose the murder mystery one technically does have a hint of violence in it.
Yeah, you do die in fairly violent ways.
Yeah, so maybe that's not a good example. But we go back to
let's skip that one.
Yeah, let's skip that one. Or you could have giant beatboxing robots. Although you do break buildings in that one, you gotta assume that they are unoccupied.
Yeah. You can also play it without destroying the buildings, so let's just assume everyone does that.
Yeah, cool. The quiz games in general, Trivial Pursuit as well, and there was Trivial Pursuit Live, which wasn't actually live, but they're still. It's just a massive collection of questions, and it's good fun.
We had good times on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the PlayStation.
Yes. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the PC as well is a solid game. Yeah. That guy doing the Chris Tarrant impression, but the actual character doesn't look like Chris Tarrant. Really weird.
We licensed his voice likeness, but not his voice or his actual likeness. So we can employ an impersonator.
Yeah. Oddly, whilst we've been speaking, I just saw my phone flashed up with a message. Harmonix has got a new game coming out. Harmonix, as of the rock band company called Fuser.
Hot off the press. Yeah, I read about that.
So
I read that they were doing some.
DJ Simulator, but it's still got playstyle elements like it. So I mean, maybe the rock band genre isn't dead, but I remember there was a DJ Hero as well.
There was. Forgot about that, which came with a mixing deck peripheral.
Yeah, which was basically a plastic circle.
Yeah, with some knobs.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, Jackbox, quiz games, definitely non-violent, good games. What have you got up next?
This is one that I've changed since the podcast began, because you said something to remind me of it.
Yeah.
And it's so when the Wii had been out for a while, there was the kind of Wii family of games, I guess, most of which are non-violent. So there's Wii Fit, Wii Fit Plus, Wii Play.
Good show, yeah.
Wii Sports Plus. Wii Sports Resort and Wii Play Motion. And I loved these little compilations, and I've written on the blog many times how I think these games were little kind of tasters of what you could do with a Wiimote. And so each of these games was a mini smorgasbord, and unfortunately nobody ever ran with half of those ideas. Some of them were duff, so the kind of cow racing game was just not very good at all, but others were fantastic. So there's 2 games on Wii Play Motion, and as we've been talking, I've flip-flopped between which one I want to put on my list, although I could just cheat and put all of Wii Motion Plus on. Wii Play Motion, sorry. But I'm going to go with the Skip Skimmer.
Skip Skimmer.
Yeah, so it was a stone skipping game
Yes.
where you use the Wiimote. It was just phenomenal because the first bit of it was you pick your pebble, so you look down at a beach and you pick them up, turn them round. You go, oh, that one's a bit wobbly, that one's a bit fat, and then if you did very well, you would unlock. I remember there being a pebble with a duck on it, so as you skimmed it, it would make a quacking noise, or the UFO would do big slow bounces. And then you compete to try and skim these stones as far as possible. Of all the games on Wii Play Motion, so Wii Play was kind of the not as good sibling of the other ones in the Wii family, that Wii whatever family. But that was one of the games we played a lot, like ages and ages of playing that with my family to try and get records, beat records and get far distances and start unlocking all these weird stones. So yeah, Skip Skimmer, phenomenal. If you have a Wii or access to a Wii U and a Wii Motion Plus, I'd recommend digging those out. The other game that I didn't pick, which I'm going to give a small shout out for, I think I made it my game of the year 3 years in a row on the pages of www.thatguys.co.uk, is Star Shuttle. So you'd use the Wiimote, sort of like a spaceship. So, if you imagine you're a child playing with a spaceship and swooshing all around, and you had to get it in the right orientation to attach it to a space station. That's great. None of those ideas ever saw the light of day ever again, which is sad, because I'd be down for some stone skimming and more space manipulation.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
We touched on another game very, very briefly, but never really went into any detail on it. The Sims. Is The Sims allowed into our non-violent game?
I don't know, because as you were talking earlier, I was thinking about what about things like Theme Hospital, Theme Park, and those games. What are they called? Park
God
management? God games. There we go. But then I don't know. I think you can only count it if you never locked your sim in the swimming pool to drown, or removed all the doors to a room so they starved to death, or
caught fire.
removed all the fences in the Jurassic Park manager so that the dinosaurs escaped. If you're that kind of person, yes, you can count it. But I have never. If there's a way to cause injury, death, or damage to my virtual people, yeah.
It's like, I was thinking, even like if SimCity, even the old SimCities, you could just get bored and bring in a hurricane or Godzilla or a flood or something like that. And I think that's what really defined them as god games in that sort of fashion,
I don't think it's valid to be a god game if you're all benevolence and no violence. I think no punishment, which is of course exactly what Black and White were about.
Yeah, exactly. But the less we talk about Molyneux, the better.
Yeah.
So my next game, I was just touching on that just because we started mentioning on it. My next game that I have been enjoying recently, it was potentially going to be a What Are You Playing, is actually Snooker 19.
No way. Okay.
It's weird.
So you're not even playing Snooker 20, so you're a year behind already.
Although there is no Snooker 20. Okay. Snooker 19 is a fun, flawed game. I like snooker. I had a phase where I would just sit and watch the snooker for ages, and I don't know why, but it was just fun. Like when people were starting to gear up and it was red black, and I picked up Snooker 19, had a bit of fun, and it's challenging as well. There's a great deal of knowledge behind backspin and side spin and all that sort of stuff that you need to know going into this game. And it's odd, they've actually licensed and got a whole bunch of the popular snooker players of today in there. They don't look great. Everything else looks great. Like, the balls are fucking shiny. The table looks realistic. There's like, you can almost see the shag pile in the carpet.
Yeah.
But the actual models of the people are fucking questionable. And even like, you know that thing where they get where they sort of like, they get this camera angle where you're looking directly down and at the person. If you do that, their face kind of folds in itself. You'll see their hand going into the face. You know, like classic PS2 graphics. You're just like, what the fuck is this? You know, like they've done a lot. So it's a good snooker game. They've got these likenesses in there. They've got good commentators. They don't have the snooker theme tune, which fucking kills me. Like, it's one of the best bits.
Maybe
it's not even.
Maybe you can kind of stop saying kind of. Maybe you could set up your phone and then play it whilst the intro spins up. So that
exactly. That's a good shout. But yeah, it's in general, it's a great snooker game. It is a sim snooker game almost, and as much as you can do, like if you play a golf sports game, it's nothing to do with fucking golf. It's about, you know, click, click, click.
Yeah.
You know that, and it's the same sort of thing, but it does have the atmosphere of golf because you've got the wind whistling, you watch the ball go, and you've got Pierre Alice, you know, saying something in the background at you. And the snooker's kind of the same thing, and they've got the same sort of banter of some good positioning of the ball, you know, that sort of stuff. So it's got a good atmosphere about it, and every so often you're just reminded that it's a video game whenever you see the supposed character models that they've tried to put in there. But yeah, it's a good bit of fun. I'm glad I picked it up. And
is it VR compatible? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Like that'd be great. No, that's the kind of game where VR would work.
Yeah, you're right. Being able just to sort of look around the oval or something like that. Yeah, that'd be cool.
And kind of get your eye on the ball with how it is to others. Yeah.
Crucible, not the oval. The oval's cricket. What the fuck? Yeah. So that's my notable for sports.
So you say you've been playing it recently. How much time have you been putting into?
Well, an actual snooker game takes a good 15 minutes, and I played a few frames, so I'd say probably like a couple hours on there.
Does it have online play?
Yes, it does.
Wow, fantastic. See, that's what games should be about, right?
Yeah.
Reconstructing, playing snooker. Cool.
So, what do you have left? Do you have anything left?
I do. I've got one left. Weirdly, a couple of these. So I talked about the art style games before, which was late 2000s, collective. And then my next game is from which we keep coming back to. I don't know why. Level 5 had Guild 01 and Guild 02.
Okay.
Which is these short, cheap games based around one idea. Between us, we picked up almost all of them.
Yeah, I had Attack of the Friday Monsters. Yeah.
Yeah. I had Crimson Shroud, which was like a miniatures tabletop role-playing game. So you know the story plays out, but you see your characters as miniatures, and you see the dice rolls. The other one, which was close, it's between this one or the other one to make the list, was Starship Damray, which was a 3D you wake up on this spaceship and everybody's dead. So you have to work out what's happening.
Sounds very violent.
No, there's no actual violence. It's puzzle exploration game. Very good. Recommend that. The one puzzle explore 'em up puzzler.
Explore 'em up puzzler. There we go. Yeah. Get it right, Richie. Fuck it.
Yeah. Jesus. But the one I'm going to choose, and it's an idea I like. And there are a couple of games I've played around with it. Is games where you take the role of an NPC. So I remember in the last story, there's a mini game. There's a mini game where you can man a store and you sell stuff to people coming past. So the game that I'm choosing, which is from the Level 5 Guild 01 collection, is Weapon Shop de Amassy. You play as a blacksmith who has to forge different weapons to then give to heroes who then go off and explore the dungeons. So all you're doing is manufacturing these different weapons, and you unlock different blueprints.
There's something else recently that came out that does exactly this as well. I was reading about this. Oh shit! I think it's actually one of the ones on the Epic Store.
Oh, hey, there we go!
Oh shit! But
get those epic bucks in, Richie. Get those epic bucks in.
But yeah, there's one where you're playing as a shopkeeper, and it's all about being the shopkeeper. And you sell different things to them in order for them to improve on dungeons, and you don't actually partake at all. Sorry, it just rung a lot of bells. So whilst you're doing the smithing, and as you can imagine, there's various qualities you can make and materials you can use, and there's I think it's a small rhythm game when it comes to actual smithing. But you have a rolling feed, almost like a chat feature on a live broadcast, which is giving you updates on the various heroes as they're out and how well they're doing in dungeons before they come back. And if they're successful, they'll give you the weapon back and some other things. If they're unsuccessful, there's a chance that they lose the weapon. So a lot of the story is about these different characters who you meet. So there's a pair of twins. There's like a very butch-looking. I think she's a female warrior. Could be a very female-looking male warrior. So she goes stomping and shouting around, and there's kind of a weedy guy, and you get some kind of NPC players as well. So it's your interactions with them and your blacksmith master that makes the game. But it's really fun to take on the role of what would be an NPC, because the various memes back in the day, there are various memes about sitting in your house and somebody like Link just barges in, destroys all your shit, and then runs away. So it's quite fun to role play. And of course, we should probably but for fuck's sake, use the word famously.
We should probably touch famously.
Who's famously? We should probably touch on that famous character, the guy that played the NPC in Oblivion, who never did any violence whatsoever. So.
What's his name? Podrick. Is it Podrick?
Norbert,
something like that.
Yeah.
From the Living in Oblivion.
Yeah.
Role played to just
a normal person without any powers.
Yeah. No charisma. And could only make money collecting mushrooms and herbs.
Yeah. And do you know what else I could bring up right now?
Go on.
There was a character in World of Warcraft who played as a pacifist.
Okay, yeah.
Who collected. It was in one of the expansions they brought in collecting experience for gathering.
Make sure you mention it so that all the people who gone to the bookies and put a bet down on you mentioning all 4 things. It's a nice spread. Perhaps some of that money will come back your way, maybe, who knows.
Oh, fucking hell. But yeah, no, there was a guy who played all the way through to like level 80 or whatever it was by only collecting herbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do like the idea of doing that, or you know, having the possibility in a game to actually, I am going to be, you know, non-violent or a pacifist, and games that let you do it, you know, without forcing you to kill something. I think that's cool, and I like doing that, and it's fun. But often it's, so I imagine, well, you would know better than me. So I imagine it was a ball ache, right? And WoW, like not fun.
Yeah, I don't think you get very much XP, or you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so it's it's just basically meant that rather than grinding for 6 days plus played, he did it for like 60 days plus played.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But what would be really nice is if the, you know, smithing, alchemy side of the game was as complex as the you know, dungeon exploring, boss killing. Obviously, if you really wanted to choose one path or the other, there was a way to, you know, get more and more XP rather than, oh no, you just have to do this one really small thing over and 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 over.
Yeah, but there's like 2 gathering excuse my words. There's 2 gathering professions. I think it's mining and picking flowers. I think his whole fun way of doing this was just to pick flowers, and I like the idea of getting to level 80 or whatever it was, the cap for that expansion, and you've only picked flowers.
Yeah,
you know,
having 0 kills on your profile.
Yeah. But what do you do after that?
I don't know.
There's no epic raid to pick flowers. You know?
Epic flower raider. A bunch of flower pickers have to team up to pick a really big flower.
Well, yeah. Cool. So, I think that's it. That's our pick of the non-violent games.
Yeah, and when we first started talking about this, I think both of us thought it was going to be much harder. As I was looking, and as we've talked, a lot of games have come to mind. Actually, so there was a lot out there. A game that I'm surprised neither of us picked is SSX Tricky.
Yeah, except that the right stick is shove.
Oh wow, you really were hardline.
really. And also, like these snowboarding games, and I went back to Steep the other day. There's like the deaths that you can occur are awful. And as much as it's comic booky, I feel like it still falls into, oh yeah, you died. I mean, like the falls that these guys do and how they land, like on their face into rocks, is absolutely So I thought about it.
That's a whole genre of game, right? There's the kind of the goat simulator, but then there was also one. Was it Office Chair Olympics or something? Yeah. There's another one where you basically just throw a guy at a building. It's
all just sort of Gary's mod sort of things.
Yeah,
it's just like
ragdoll violence.
We've created a Unity game and left all the bugs in it. Have fun.
Yeah.
I don't really have time for them. just to be an arse, you know. But yeah, I mean, it is fun. But it's just like it's. I don't get anything meaningful from those games. Not that many games you get meaningfulness from, but it's just kind of like I don't want to. I don't want to give them the satisfaction that they are half-created playground sandbox game. Is all that you need to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't want to give them the satisfaction by downloading the game for free
Yeah.
and playing it.
Yeah. Spending any
don't
time
want-
on it.
You don't want any of that money to go back to them.
No, not at all.
Right. Oh, I just remembered Super Monkey Ball. Fuck.
Oh well. There you go then. Maybe we can have a non-violent games part 2. The
Maybe.
remembering.
The non-violenting.
A non-violent mup. Alright. Yeah. I guess we do our usual. Say goodbye, Farley.
Goodbye.
Bye.